On this episode of Through the Pines, we'll cover how health and longevity matters for wealth building. Yes, it does. So how living longer helps health and wealth compound, preventing measures as a financial investment, health savings accounts, longevity planning, mental health and productivity, long-term care, and workplace wellness. So let's dive in. Welcome to a financial planning podcast with a down-to-earth vibe. Sasquatch listens while doing his laundry in the mountain streams. This is Through the Pines. Our advisors for this episode, we welcome back Rex and Brandyn Smith. Well, I should say Rex Baxter, not Rex Smith. That would be a little weird. But Rex Baxter and Brandyn Smith from planwithbaxter.com. They are the 2023, 2024, and 2025 Forbes Best in State Wealth Management Teams for Utah, Advisor Hub fastest growing advisors to watch under $1 billion, and the receivers of the Ameriprise Client Experience Award, so they know what they are doing, and they can be reached 24/7, not by phone, but at planwithbaxter.com. I don't know, Rex. Maybe your clients call you by phone.
Don't call me at 2 in the morning. I probably won't respond.
I don't know how many financial emergencies are at 2 in the morning, but I know you try to prevent that, so that's a good thing. All right, well, let's dive into how health can help build wealth. And Rex was like, how are you going to twist this, Brandyn? I'm like, okay, well, let's dive in. Let's see how, maybe it doesn't matter. All right. But I have some notes here. So I believe, health could be a foundational asset that could amplify financial success. Poor health could derail financial plans through unexpected medical expenses, lost income, or reduced productivity, while good health extends time horizons for earning, savings, and investing. Exhibit A, Warren Buffett, Rex.
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
Yeah.
I see what you're doing here.
Okay.
Yeah, I can see the financial tie-ins.
All right.
So I'm not a doctor or health expert.
Yeah.
Anybody that's met me knows that. And so, but yeah, I can get on board with this topic.
Okay.
This will be fun.
All right. Sounds good. So like healthcare costs are expensive, longevity trends are important, and what is the economic context in 2025? But first of all, let's kind of go do an overview of health on wealth. Brandyn, if you're living healthier and longer, how does that affect the compounding of wealth?
Yeah. Thanks for having us on your podcast.
Yeah.
So a really good potential philosophical question. As I was in my finance classes and I started studying finance and compound interest, you quickly learn that like if you worked an extra 5 or 10 years, you can build dramatically more wealth. And if you could just live forever, and that's why this is also, by the way, why...
Right, Moses.
Well, Moses, but also vampires are so wealthy.
But the point is worth thinking about. If you could live forever, if you could live 400 or 500 years, it would make so much sense just to work until you're 75, build the sufficient wealth that then just takes off and exponentially grows. And you can take a distribution rate that's so low that your money essentially could never run out, right? The interest would so far outpace your distributions that you could effectively, ultimately get unlimited funds, right? And what our own mortality, it seems, limits our ability to enjoy wealth in a lot of ways. And those ways are that we realize we're going to not only pass away eventually, but we're going to be physically unable to go out and do a lot of the things we want to do. And so that's why we're always trying to push retirement as early as possible, right? At 60 or 65, when really, I mean, it would be so easy to just work another 5 years, right? In the scheme of things, that's not that much more time and would build your wealth dramatically. But at the end of the day, it doesn't work like that, right? At the end of the day, we have those caps on the other end. And so we find ourselves in this weird balancing mix of like, hey, okay, sure, I can work one more year. And if I work one more year, my monthly income goes up by a lot. But man, that one more year is worth a lot because I only have so many one more years left.
Right.
And so it's kind of a philosophical, like, okay, how do you wrap your brain around this? But to your point and to your topic, right, your health and longevity have a lot to do with your finances.
Rex?
They're extremely intertwined.
Intertwined is the better way to put that.
Right. And so if all of a sudden you have a lot of health issues when you're young and early and during those early saving years, and you're not able to save, then we miss out on the compounding of that interest, and that's just crucial. I mean, you talk about going back to school and those examples. One of the examples that they went through when I was at Weber State in our finance class was the magic penny example. And so, the question proposed to our class was to illustrate the compounding interest is, would you take $1 million cash today, or would you take a penny that doubles every day for 30 days? Right. And so it goes from 1 penny to 2 pennies to 4 pennies.
Okay. What's the math? Does the penny win?
And so the math is that the penny wins and grows to over 30 days, grows to over $5 million.
Yeah. Okay.
And by the 31st day, you're at over $10 million to show that power of the compounding. But it really doesn't start to cross the math until day 28 or 27, right? It's those final compounding that if all of a sudden, we lose the first 5 compoundings of that penny due to poor health and sickness, then we don't get to the 5 million. Then we don't have that extra compounding of money. And so, health is critical. You've got to be healthy and have some longevity so that you can save early and save long.
So you're a financial planner, Rex. You're not
I am
a health practitioner or teacher or coach, like a fitness coach, right? Brandon, neither are you, or you're not a
none
fitness
of the above.
coach. Yeah.
I've watched some videos on YouTube.
People take a look at me and frequently ask that question. No, I'm just kidding.
But I don't know if you do address preventative health as a financial investment for your clients. In other words, preventative measures may include regular checkups or healthy eating and exercise to reduce future medical costs or expenses and to improve their productivity. Is that something you ever address?
It's interesting. I address it sometimes. Probably should address it more. Address it sometimes on two different angles, two different lines of thought. One is, as we're going through insurances, right? We want to be able to get the best underwriting of insurance, which means that we need you to be healthy and fit and not obese and things like that, because then your premiums go up, and so we try and go through that path. But I do focus a lot more on brain health.
Yeah.
And too frequently, and I wish I had the stat on this, but too frequently people run into major health issues the year or within 2 years after retirement. I can't tell you how many times I see somebody retire and then they go through a stroke or they go through a heart issue that very first year or two right after retirement. And it's a compounding effect of not having the same mental stimulation or the same physical hobbies that they may have had that kept them active during their working years. And so I think it's extremely critical and important in order to keep your mind healthy and your body healthy as we progress into retirement, meaning that we need something that's going to keep us sharp.
Yeah. Whether
it's puzzles, whether it's a side hustle, whether it's taking a little more active role in a small part, but part of your investments, right? Whatever your passion is, we want you to do that passion because it helps you stay sharp.
I know we've had to recently help out with my parents in their, I think is it
Medicare?
Medicare. They have, you get money if you can like upload like how many steps that you take. You know what I mean? Like they'll give you a little bit of money that you can apply towards a prescription or something, that you show that you're active.
They give you financial incentives if you're part of the silver steppers, or I forget what they call them, and so that's kind of
that's
where
a good name.
I forget what it's something like that. It really is.
Yeah.
And so, or if you go and do chair exercises on Saturday mornings or, then they do give you some financial incentives. And although it's not, enormous amounts of money. It's an extra, $25 or $50 or whatever the case may be. But it helps offset some of those costs of 100%. Just staying active.
Yep. Brandon, do you ever talk to clients about like setting annual physicals and checkups and stuff to help, like Rex mentioned, keep insurance premiums down?
I don't talk to them about their annual physical, but maybe that would be
certain things I don't want to know about their annual physical.
That might be true. Yeah.
But we talk about, especially with long-term care, right?
Yeah.
And we'll discuss that, especially as they're getting older and,
Yeah.
and closer to that time frame of, all right, here are the risks of a long-term care expense and the costs of that, and how can we offset that? And I will mention, healthy habits from time to time, like, hey, if we can do these things and we can stay healthy, that really helps your plan. One of the hardest things for a plan is a premature death. Right, someone early in retirement, especially those first 10 years, passing away because why? Well, we not only do we lose out on their Social Security benefit, the lower of the two goes away, but then we also lose out on tax filing status, and sometimes there's other pension stuff, but usually those two things alone are big enough to be fairly significant.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we can incorporate a healthy lifestyle and things like that, that can really be beneficial.
Being self-employed and working for a business that for the last 10 years who didn't have a medical plan, I wouldn't have gone to an annual checkup unless something was wrong. And I don't know how many people out there are like that, but then one year, I think about 5 years ago, my wife was like, hey, we get like $200 or something if we just do our annual checkup. And so from the insurance. So I scheduled an annual checkup. I'm like, okay. And those are awesome. I'm like, oh my gosh, I wouldn't have gone otherwise. You know what I mean? Like, it's just something that's like, and doing that. And that's what's suggested as an actual advice, to schedule annual physicals and screenings, often covered by insurance, to catch issues early. And so, when you have the doctor tell you, like, if you got to do something about your cholesterol or your blood pressure too high, then you're like, oh, okay. And then now you're like, okay, yeah, if I want to live and build wealth, I might have to change some of my habits so I'm healthier so I can do that later on,
Yeah, I think more than live and build wealth, it's motivating to, if you have kids and grandkids
100%.
and future grandkids, right? That's a little more motivating than if a doctor tells you to go and fix your unhealthy lifestyle.
Yeah.
To go do it. I think for a financial advisor, I think it's a delicate line, right, for us to necessarily bring it up and initiate it without being offensive.
Yeah.
Because you just don't know where they're at or what they've done or how hard they're trying at that point. However, we certainly are very receptive that if somebody brings it up, we're not shy to share. A lot of times people go through a surgery and they're like, I've got to do this physical therapy and this one's not working for me very well. It's very easy for me to say, hey, look, here's a couple of physical therapists that are phenomenal, right? That work with these types of injuries and these types of issues and head over there. Or here's a fitness coach, or here's a healthy lifestyle coach that you can work with that's really personable and will match your personality type to try and help out with that. And then let's work on the financial plan to make sure that we can, that it's not adding to your stress on how you pay for this additional health care.
Yeah.
Right. And let's kind of add that in so that we can make sure that you can maintain those healthy habits that you're trying to build.
Yeah.
Because as a financial advisor, we're here for you 100%. If you come to us and say, hey, you know what? I don't want to do healthy things. I just want to, whatever it is you want to do, we say, all right, here are some of the risks associated with this. Here's some things we can look for to try and mitigate those risks. And this is how that looks, right? Like, we are 100% behind you to say whatever your goal is, whether it's passing on incredible amounts of wealth to your kids or enjoying life or
skydiving in the Maldives, right?
Whatever.
Whatever it is.
Yeah.
We are here for you.
Yeah.
And if that's a lax lifestyle, then great. We're here, right? And we're here to help. And so,
And as we mentioned on the previous podcast, you're also here to suggest insurance that you might want to cover should you make a certain decision one way or the other about your lifestyle, right? It's like, okay, cool. Well, financially, you should maybe consider this insurance
or maybe we should get insurance before you go and try that.
Yes.
And so,
Yeah.
you might want to do that as well.
A couple other actionable items on preventative health real quick that I looked up would be to invest in low-cost health habits like meal prepping, free workout apps, walking 10,000 steps a day. Also, you could wear, which I have one of those watches that tells me, they suggest Fitbit or Apple Watch, but mine's a Suunto from like 10 years ago, and it still works, which is great, and I love it, to track like health metrics and stuff. So more on the financial side of things, Rex, health savings accounts, HSAs, and how do you use an HSA as a financial tool?
in my opinion, health savings accounts are one of the strongest financial tools or types of accounts that are out there. The power of being able to save into it with the tax deduction, allow that to compound, tax deferred, and then being able to use that tax free for your expenses in retirement is just so important. And so we really try to get people to max that out.
Is it 4,300 for individual?
I think it's 4,300 for an individual and 86 for a couple.
85, 50.
85, 50. Okay.
Yep. Okay. If you're under age 50, then it goes.
And then you've got some catch-ups.
Or is it 55, I think?
In there. I think you've got some catch-ups in there.
Yep, 1,000.
After 50. But I think they're critically important. The thing is that as a lot of people get into retirement, a lot of people are not itemizing their deductions anymore. And so when you're not itemizing your deductions, then we're not able to write off some of our healthcare expenses on our taxes and get that tax deduction. And so where we already got the tax deduction on the health savings account, we can use that in retirement to pay for our dental bills or to pay for our premiums or our co-pays, things like that. And so it's a backdoor way, if you will, to where we saved up during our working years, and now we get the tax-free benefit of that during our retirement years. And so it's probably one of the best tools out there.
Yeah. Brandon, anything on HSAs?
Just, we love them, right? And I think reviewing those and making sure you're being efficient with it, because it's really good to max fund that and get that full tax deduction. But then eventually it really makes sense to start investing in it. A lot of times, not always, but most times, right? If this is longer term money and we can grow it and then get to it in retirement tax free and use it for any sort of medical expense, which are unfortunately plentiful in retirement. And if you can't do it there, we can pull it out as a long-term care expense, which happens a lot.
That's huge.
Yeah. And then on top of that, if you're just like the healthiest person in the world, you're like, I'm never going to spend all this, we can pull it out as a traditional IRA like distribution, right? It's like you funded a traditional IRA effectively.
Okay.
And so
So there's really no downsides to
HSAs are awesome.
Yeah.
You do need to have a HSA eligible health insurance plan to be able to make that contribution.
Okay.
But if you have one of those, an HSA is a great place to save money.
Cool.
One of the planning tips, pro tip, that's out there.
Brought to you by planwithbaxter.com.
is during your working years, you may have a high deductible plan, healthcare plan, right? And so you're saving into your health savings account, and you may go through a year and all of a sudden June hits and you've been saving, you're already part of the plan. You can't change plans at this point, and you have a big medical expense that hits. And so then the dilemma becomes, do I take it out of my health savings account or do I not? Or do I just pay for it out of pocket? And sometimes we want to pay for it out of pocket because we can itemize that deduction. We're still max funding the health savings account, getting that deduction there. And then all of a sudden we're able to itemize the healthcare expense as well and not draw down the health savings account. And so sometimes during your working years, it might be better to pay out of pocket as opposed to draining down that health savings account that we can use later on in life.
Yeah.
Interesting.
One strategy I did when we had one of our last child, I think, we went to the hospital and I had the money in the bank to pay for the hospital bill, but I just transferred it. I took it from the bank, dropped it in my HSA, and then went to the hospital and said, hey, can I pay cash and get a discount? They knocked off 25%. And so I got a huge deduction on the bill overall. Then I got a tax deduction because I just like bounced it into the HSA and then bounced it right out and paid for it. And so I was really proud of that. I was telling a friend and he's like, oh.
Dude, that's like next level financial planning stuff right there.
I thought so. I felt pretty good about it.
Where do you get your pro tips?
Right. Well, and then I was talking to my friend. He's like, oh, I paid the hospital bill in cash with a credit card, got the points, and then I took the receipt and took the distribution out of the HSA. I was like, oh, man, that was one step. But anyway, yeah, there's some fun things you can do to try and work that.
That's so geeky financial stuff. I love it. That's next level. That's fantastic. Very, very good. So HSAs are accessible for pretty much anyone, I guess. You said there's one caveat.
You have to have an HSA eligible health insurance plan, which are typically they are high deductible plans. Okay. But sometimes those high deductibles aren't that crazy.
Okay.
And sometimes they are.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure that you're prepared for that, that you have a good solid emergency
Yeah,
fund.
And I
things
always
like that.
tell people that we bring this subject up with client meetings a lot, and I always say, like, let's make sure the health insurance coverage is appropriate, right? That's first and foremost. But if we can get a health insurance plan that works for you, that is also HSA eligible, that can be really beneficial for you.
Also, it depends on your family, right? If you're the type of family that's perennially at the doctor's office,
Right.
And every bee sting you go in, and every time that you stub your toe, you go into the doctor kind of thing, and you're there all the time, then a high deductible plan may not be your best friend.
Yeah.
Right.
At that
Or
point.
if you have recurring health issues that come up.
Right.
Okay, so let's talk longevity planning and saving for a longer life. Rex, you had a fun saying, I think on the last, what was that saying?
I have so many fun
Yes,
sayings.
well, that's
I can't
true.
believe you want me to limit it to one fun saying.
One, and that is when you retire, you got the slow go, the go, the no-go. What's the
go, the slow go, and the no go.
Yeah.
That is not mine. I'm not sure
Yeah.
who started that.
Okay.
Somebody started. So that definitely belongs to somebody other than
Okay.
me. I just
But
don't
you
know who
heard
to
it
give
somewhere.
credit to.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. But living to 90 or beyond, which is possible. And so including the need for larger retirement savings to cover 30 to 40 years post-retirement, and how your health impacts the earning capacity, and should you be working through some of those years?
Yeah, I think that it's healthy to work, to have something, to pursue your passion, and whether it's working at a traditional job, whether it's a side hustle, whether you're going and being a marshal at a golf course, whether you're volunteering at your children's school or your grandchildren's school by that point, whether you're volunteering at a charity or a nonprofit, right? I think find your passions and spend time doing those passions. And so I do think that you should be doing something. Sometimes you want to do it for money, and we need to do it for money sometimes. Sometimes we don't, and the money is secondary, and so we can truly pursue it. And that's our goal, is to try and get it to where it's secondary, to where that's an option on the money issue, and you really can go and pursue that passion. But 40 years, to fund 40 years in retirement, that's a long time. And people are living longer with all the medical advancements. I just saw that they're putting some cancer treatments into human trials starting this week, that they're having amazing results, at least on their pre-human trials.
Pray that works.
Yeah, for sure. And so to where it actually can, hit tumors before tumors begin and different things like that. And so, but these advancements are going to start.
Tumor Buster 2000.
That's right.
I hope it works.
Get your prescription here. So, but these advancements, I think they're going to really ramp up over the next 10, 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
In the healthcare industry. I think a lot of money has flown into the healthcare industry since COVID. And I think that money that's been flowing into the healthcare industry is going to have enormous health benefits for the next couple of generations.
Well, in computing power alone, with AI and being
Yeah.
able to put together things that we've never been able to link, I think can be really helpful.
And you use that with financial planning, Brandon, on the computing side of things and measuring out. And I don't know, I don't know how far you go. So when you're planning financially and someone's in their 30s or 40s or 50s, and they're like, okay, well, I'm planning for retirement. You just go to 100? Where do you start? And where do you,
We start at 100.
Yeah.
I
okay.
joke with people all the time, because when I started in the business, I used to go to 90.
Yeah.
Is how far I'd go, because the average lifespan at that time was about 83, 84 was kind of the, so I'd go to 90, and then I had a couple of clients make it to 93, 94, and so I moved it and bumped it up to 95, and then I had people live to 97, 98, and so I bumped it up to 100, and now we had our first client make it to 101 last year, and I'm pretty determined not to move it to 105, you guys. Not that I'm wishing poorly on all of you for shorter lifespans, but I really don't want to move it to 105. So we'll see.
But that's interesting, because you have to plan because what happens if you outlive your money?
Right.
You know?
Well, and we run through scenarios, right, to
Okay.
where we say, hey, look, based on your genetics and your family history, right, your dad may have passed and your grandpa may have passed in their 70s, and so we want to run those scenarios and say, what happens if we lose you and we lose one of the Social Security benefits, possibly lose a pension? what happens to that lifestyle if one of you passes early, and if we saved appropriately for these different situations and scenarios. And so we're going to run through a bunch of those scenarios with you.
Okay, so the AI algorithm told me this is advice for saving for longer life. So as a financial planner, correct the AI.
This could be a new
approve.
segment.
Yeah, that could be. Use a financial advisor to calculate and estimate retirement and savings needed based on a 90-plus year lifespan.
I agree, except for bump it up to 100.
Okay.
But definitely agree with the use of financial advisor piece of that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Prioritize Roth IRAs or 401ks early to maximize compound interest over decades.
It depends based on your current income level and tax rates. It depends.
Okay. Consider, quote unquote, and this is the first time I've ever heard this phrase. I like the phrase, encore careers or part-time work in the retirement to stretch out savings.
Disagree on encore careers?
I do. I think they're great if you want to do them for fun. But how many plans have we run?
Yeah, I don't want to have to plan or have a client plan on an encore career. That should be an extra passion that they want to pursue for some reason.
Not only that, mathematically, I'm always astounded at how well those don't work. That's a poor way to say
How much they don't work?
Yeah.
In other words,
yeah.
if you save... I was running numbers. I think I'm on my wife's 401k. I was like, if she says, and you're like, man, when you start late, it just doesn't really do that much. So it
makes it harder.
Yeah, it's way easier to start early and let that compound than work an extra job. But
I've had so many clients who are like, I hate my job. Like, I hate it. Like, I need to be done. And they're maybe 60, and they're like, well, what if I work until 61, and then I'll just get a part-time job that pays maybe a quarter of what I'm earning. But at least I won't hate what I'm doing. And instead of working until, what they would have had to work till like 63 or something, it puts them working until like 70. Like, it's wild that all, when you take a dramatic, and these are usually higher income earning individuals that then take a significant cut, right, and just work kind of your average salary. And it takes forever and now they're working in this job forever, where they'd probably prefer just to work another 2 years, in this misery. But it's not for me to decide, right? I can just clearly tell them, all right, we can either continue where you're at here, or we find this new job and you work until 70. What would you prefer?
It's amazing at how good people are at creating their own narratives, right? Is people sit there and convince themselves that, I'm going to retire at 60 and work part-time as consulting or whatever the case may be, and I'm going to earn, 50% of, and they're pulling these numbers out of thin air. Typically.
No, but the crazy thing is I know people who do that, and it works well for them, because they set it up properly where they're making good money doing that. But that doesn't mean that everyone can do that.
It can work well, but I think the vast majority, it doesn't work well, is that they've convinced themselves that this is what's going to happen, and then life smacks them in the face. And all of a sudden, they can't do that side hustle, or there's not as much interest in their skill set as what they thought, right, for that pay that they want to make. And so, I just think it's interesting that people will create that narrative so they can spend more today, so that they can, in theory, work for a shorter amount of time and then work longer for a part-time amount of time, instead of just start early, save right. Yeah. And let's just get the goal right on the front end and get you to where you want to be, so that at age 60, whatever that age is, we've planned correctly so that you have good, strong, viable choices of, if you don't like what you're doing, then go find something that you do like doing and go do it. But I would argue, man, if you don't like if you're 40 and you really don't like your job that much,
right. We need to
life's too short. Go find something that you're passionate about and go find it and do it and be amazing at that.
Yep. I like that about you, Rex.
But that's where that AI is dangerous, right? Because they're like, oh yeah, an encore. I'll just do that.
Sounds
I'll
good.
And once you give up that high paying job, a lot of times you can't make your way back. And so you need to do the planning beforehand to say, all right, if I can't get this, right, I know I can at least make this, and how does that play out?
And you've got to do it beforehand. By that, I mean before you made your mind up that that's what you're going to do.
Yeah.
Not just before you do it, but don't make your mind up yet.
Yeah.
And speaking of mind, Rex, you brought up mental health earlier and how it affects finances. So I want to dive into that, because that is a part of being healthy, is having a mentality and a healthy mindset, and to be able to work and save and make good financial decisions. And we had a whole podcast on how to make bad financial decisions based off of mental mistakes, I guess, right?
Yeah.
So, how does your mentality affect making financial decisions? And, when you're in a good mood, when you're in a bad mood, when your body is sick, that might affect your mental decisions as well. So,
well, I think just like some people stress eat, some people stress spend, right?
oh yeah.
And so I think that typically, spending and savings are typically emotional decisions for most people. And so if you're in a bad emotional place, a poor emotional state, then typically you're going to make poor emotional financial decisions in your life.
Like impulse spending.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right? Halloween spending. Oh, did I say that? Did I say that in December
Wait
or
a
October?
minute.
Wait,
Yeah.
who said that?
But that's that's how a lot of people deal with stress. They go shopping.
Absolutely. They've even coined it retail therapy, right? I mean, and so there's a lot of that goes on. And on top of that, I think the other issues of being in a good mental state or mental health issues is that can permeate into your job. You may lose a job, right? A good job that you have because you're not performing at the level you need to be performing. Or you may come in and lots of times a poor mental state translates also into kind of depression and negative attitudes, and that can be heard on the phone. It can be heard in your delivery. It can be seen and felt in your communications, right? That just vibrates between those relationships, and you don't want that.
Mm-hmm. Brandon?
Totally agree.
Totally agree. Okay. Yeah. Poor mental health can lead to impulse spending or underinvestment, while good mental health may foster better discipline and optimism with your finances. I don't know if you've seen that occur.
Yeah, I think positive mental state also translates into better health. Lots of times when you're in a better mental state, you want to go out, and it kind of feeds off each other, right? That if you're in a better mental state, you want to go and exercise and you want to go and do things, and then all of a sudden that exercise creates additional endorphins, and that kind of puts you in a better mental state. So it kind of feeds off of each other. But I think it also, again, just like the bad mental state permeates who you are, so does a good mental state. People want to be around positive people. They want to be around upbeat. Yep. There's studies that say that, the better your physique, the better the better you look and things like that, the more people that want to do business with you. Mm-hmm. And I think there's some truth to that.
All right. So, financial advisors versus AI advice. This is on mental health. AI suggests that you should budget for therapy or mental health if needed, often partially covered by insurance.
But I would agree with that you should account for that as part of your regular budget, or into an emergency fund if you have a family history of it. Mm-hmm. Then we probably ought to set aside some additional funds for something like that.
Oh, you're going to like this one, Rex.
Ooh. How do we have a running score, AI versus advisors?
It's just
because I'm pretty sure we're 4-0
yeah.
at this point.
Practice mindfulness to avoid stress-driven purchases, including techniques like journaling or meditation. Now, Rex, has that ever helped you, or Brandon, avoid you or your family members from a stress-driven purchase?
I'm feeling a little bit targeted and triggered. Feeling a little targeted and triggered.
The double whammy.
So, all right, here's a little story for you for 1 year for Halloween, right? And so for one of our Halloween, right, we started writing down kind of what decorations are where at different places, right? Lowe's has X, and Home Depot has Y, and Searchers has this, and TJ Maxx has this, and Joann's has this, and all the stores, right? And so we started writing them all down, and all journaling did is it's like, oh my gosh, I don't have these 3. I got to go buy these 3. Oh my gosh, I don't have these 2. I need to go get these 2.
Well, that's a poor example of how that might work.
I think you got to make sure that you do journaling with the proper intent and the proper result.
That's hilarious. Yeah.
So maybe a different perspective.
Probably a good idea.
So when I'm making a major purchase, I have found that it works really well for me to think about something very intensely, which means research it, like go through all the numbers, everything I can find on it, read about it, talk to Jess about it, right? Like really have an intense and kind of come to like something of a conclusion, like, hey, I kind of think this is the right vacation or the right vehicle, or, kind of come to a conclusion, but then stop, set it aside, and sleep on it for like 2 to 3 days. Right. And I'm not asleep for 2 to 3 days, but just set it aside and let my brain work on that.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how often it's like, oh, you know what? The water might be a little bit cold that time of year, or when is whale season, or that vehicle isn't exactly the ideal because of X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And then come back to it and spend another like period of a little bit more intensive thought and research, right? And going over all those things, coming to a new conclusion. And these are obviously bigger things that I do this for, but it helps me really, and I don't know that I'd call it meditative or journaling, but maybe journaling, because I keep an Excel spreadsheet.
You're researching.
Right. And I keep a spreadsheet of the things that I like and why. And it helps when I get done with doing, 2, 3, 4, 5 of those sessions, I get to the end of it. And have I thought of everything? Probably not. But I feel confident that there's not going to be any like blatant, like, what were you thinking? And I feel really good moving forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the bigger the decision, the longer you let it marinate.
Yeah.
Right. And so if it's, and you can set your own dollar amounts and limits, but it's probably not a bad idea to sit there and say, hey, look, if it's a $1,000 above purchase, let's make sure we're giving it 24 hours. If it's a $5,000 purchase, let's give it a week, or, whatever the case may be. You can set your own parameters, but the bigger the decision, the longer you should let it marinate. I think the worst financial decisions I've made have been emotional and spontaneous. And it's not that I would always take those back. Sometimes, I've enjoyed the vacation, or I've enjoyed, the result of that. But I can definitely point that my, my biggest financial missteps have been emotional and spontaneous.
I love campers. We're recording in a trailer right here, and I will at times go on the internet and look up like dream campers, right? Trailers or vans or whatever, and I'll fall in love with one. And I'm like, oh man, if I had the money, I would buy this right now, And then, like you said, Brandon, time goes by, and then 6 months or so, the seasons change or whatever, and I go back, I was like, oh man, I really love that. One camper, you go back, I'm like, oh dude, boy, that camper sucks because of this or that.
It was missing this.
Your mind changed. And I think that might happen a lot with recreational equipment. We're like, I got to have this side by side. I got to have it now because I'm leaving next weekend or whatever. Right. And I got to do this. And then if you think about it later, like, actually, that probably wasn't the right one. I would have, your mind changes as you grow. And so time helps with some of those decisions.
And I think your subconscious brain does work on stuff.
Yeah.
And it thinks about stuff. When we were this last camping trailer that we bought, I looked at so many like online, and then I started, I went and looked at several in person. We went and looked at new ones, like not worth the money, and then we looked at used ones, and we got to the point where you could just feel us narrowing in, and I could look at a camera, that's a good one, that's not, until we finally found the one that we bought. And it just felt so good, and I think it was all the data inputs, and since buying it, I don't think there's a single thing on it that I wish was different that I didn't understand when I bought it, right? There were a few things when I bought it, I was like, I wish I could get to the bathroom easier without the slide or whatever. But giving yourself that time to process and think about it, relax, and come at it with a new state of mind at a different time of day helps so much.
And the good salesmen on the lots are going to take advantage of your excitement in the moment.
They're the worst. We
love you, salesman.
No, I was talking to a used car guy, and he was telling me that one of his best sales guys had sold, it was I think it was 8 cars in one day.
Oh.
And I said, 8 in a day? He's like, well, he was working a long day. I'm like, I don't care if he's working 12 hours. 8, how you get people in and you're turning them into a car that fast?
That's pretty fast, yeah.
I mean, we were just looking at a car, and we and in hindsight, they just didn't have the car we wanted. And he's like, this is what you want. Clearly this is, and it wasn't what I wanted, but he's like, what's it going to take to get you into and it's just like that high pressure. If you find yourself,
maybe they're just 8 really well prepared people.
Maybe that's possible.
They had done all their research and they
no
stopped by
way
30 other stores.
Heaven's Gate was that
That's
true.
possible. That's possible. Not likely.
Not probable.
But I do think better decisions are made with a little bit of time.
Okay, so the last actionable advice here would be to, and Brandon, you'll agree to this one, set up automated savings to reduce financial decision fatigue.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, we said it first.
He said it, yeah.
We beat it.
No, we have. Brandon has said that on this podcast for years. So, all right, some more numbers, Brandon.
Yeah. So this kind of ties in. We were talking about the health, exciting new health things, and AI, and everyone's really seems to be very excited about AI, myself included. However, it doesn't come without a cost. And in fact, so this is from First Trust. They got a lot of this data from Grid Strategies, but U.S. electrical use was flat from 2005 till 2020.
It was flat?
Flat. Electricity use was flat.
Well, that's 15 years.
Why is that? A lot of it's efficiencies. Right, it's TVs becoming more efficient. It's fridges becoming more efficient.
Okay.
Our electrical use is flat for 15 years. However, that has all changed. In 20, so they've got forecasts.
AI
primarily, and a lot of people don't understand how much electricity AI is going to is requiring today, and it will require in the future.
100%. I mean, the government just approved new coal centers or whatever because they need all this power to power AI.
Yeah.
So it's definitely, and it's not just the U.S. It's all the big major countries. So
Curious to know how much of that's EV use also.
Could be because that falls under electricity instead of
because you have to plug them in and it's going to increase the power of the grid.
Yeah.
So I wonder how much of it's that also.
But so in 2022, their projection for 2029 rose by 3.1. They anticipated the demand would raise by 3.1%. So their future projection showed 3.1% growth in demand, which is a lot. But then in 2024, so that was in 2022, in 2024, it's actually grown to 12.5% electrical use consumption.
Okay,
Wow.
but this is also why I don't like
Huge.
doom and gloom scenarios because
Is this doom and gloom?
No, yes and no. Because in early 2000s, if you were, if you were said like if we used too much electricity, and used too, the world's going to end or whatever. But we become efficient and we learn how to figure it out. And so in other words, like if it does increase that much in the next however many years, I'm assuming that humans will figure out how to make it more efficient, and it'll sort of offset eventually at some point. Anyway, I don't know. That's why
the Stone Age didn't end because we ran out of stones, and just like oh, come on.
I like that one.
I'm just seeing where this is going.
This was a good saying and you ruined
Keep going.
it.
Keep going.
Stone
Do it.
Age didn't end because we ran out of stone. And I just remember in elementary school, right, when everything was on paper, and people were like, you got to reduce your paper consumption. If we keep growing our population and we all use this much paper and it's going to grow, we're not going to have any trees left, right? And like that was a big concern.
It was a big. I remember that too. It was a big deal.
And obviously that
no one talks about trees anymore.
Well, they learned how to cut them more efficiently, and then there's programs to replant and programs where they're required to replant now, and we figured it out.
How much paper do we use on our? It used to be when I got into this industry 15 years ago, everything was paper. Yeah. I mean, paper was flying everywhere. Now we're pretty well paperless, right? Yeah. We want to set up a new account, not a single piece of paper.
RIP printer salesman, guys.
Yeah, but it takes a lot of electricity to run those power storage centers.
Sure. Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Where we're storing everything.
Right. Right.
And so, because we have to store it in 5 different places around the globe.
Right.
For backup of a backup of a backup and so forth. Right. And that takes a lot of electricity. But it's interesting on the electricity use that coincided also with COVID, of people all of a sudden working from home, being at home more. Yeah. And so it feels like that might have been the triggering event. And then it's just continued and compounded with the AI exposure and the EV kind of boom of electric vehicles that have been taking off as well. So,
do you guys invest in those sectors separately or anything, or just part of funds that include everything else?
Yeah, we have exposure to some of those sectors in some of our portfolios.
Okay, so Rex, when it comes to health and finances, long-term care is important. So the rising cost of long-term. Now, I have here showing between 60 to 100,000 a year for a nursing home in 2025. I don't know if that's true or not, but cover options like long-term care insurance and some of the policies that you should have for that.
Yeah. What was the range that he gave you again?
60 to 100.
Yeah, that's probably really, really fair.
Okay.
And so
That's a lot of money.
There's a lot of them that are over 100. If it's memory care, if it's skilled nursing to where people can't transfer and they're needing more regular skilled nurses, you might be up to 120, maybe 130,000 a year.
Oh, yeah.
And it depends on care, because there's a
so-
lot of places in Utah that $5,000 actually does pretty well.
Yeah, there's some. There's some. It's getting to be fewer.
Yeah.
And so, and Utah's fairly efficient and cost effective in their care compared to some states. I think we're middle of the pack. Last stat I'd seen.
Yeah.
I didn't see we were the cheapest nor the most expensive. But yeah, long-term care is a major issue and is kind of, I'd heard one area call it the silent killer of wealth of long-term care, because it can get so expensive down the road. Now, a lot of our clients have the goal to be self-insured for long-term care, to accumulate enough wealth to where we're able to pay for that out of pocket, and it's not an issue. We have a lot of clients that prefer to transfer that risk through either a long-term care policy or a life insurance policy with a long-term care rider, to where it can cover up to a certain amount of the long-term care cost, such as $270 a day or something along those lines. And so sometimes you want to transfer that cost. It gets tricky because typically you have to buy those policies normally when you're in your 50s, 60s, or early 70s. And so you're paying a decade's worth of premiums, or 2 decades or 25 years worth of those long-term care insurance premiums before you're getting any kind of benefit. And typically the average long-term care stay is about 18 months or so. And so you need to do that cost-benefit analysis of how much am I paying and what's the probability that I'm going to get the benefit out of this policy. And so that's an issue. And then you get the third group of people that don't have significant assets, and so the goal is actually to spend down their assets or to transfer their assets early enough during their retirement years to where they can qualify for Medicaid as opposed to Medicare, and have Medicaid or the government cover their long-term care needs. And then typically you're sacrificing some of the care. You may have to share a room with somebody. You may have to share, a TV or different kind of level where only certain facilities are available to you, things like that. And so you have to kind of balance that need between long-term care, what kind of coverage do you want, what kind of care are you looking for, in-home care, a highly personalized care, or specific facilities, versus saving less or going on a government plan to where you don't get that care.
Brandon, anything to add?
Yeah, I think the one thing, depending on your goals, one of the biggest risks of long-term care is when you have a married couple that is living, that they've built up some savings, and then one of them goes into a care facility. The other one stays at home. It's not like they cut the thermostat down in half, right? Like you still have all your utilities. You have most of the same expenses at home, except for now we've got another $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 a month being spent on long-term care, and that higher distribution rate drains down assets. Then the person in long-term care passes away, leaves the surviving spouse with nothing. And so that's when we're doing planning, that's kind of my number one concern. There's other concerns, sure, right? Passing on wealth to kids, things like that. But that's the number one concern, is that we have that. And so trying to mitigate that either through healthy living habits, through working with kids, trying to work, or an insurance policy to transfer that risk. Those are the things you should be considering when you think about long-term care.
Okay, and finally, on how health impacts your wealth is, and this is something that's fairly new, I think, is workplace wellness and financial benefits of that. So employer wellness programs like gym stipends, mental health resources that can save money and boost potential income. What are the benefits like, well, we talked about HSAs and flexible schedules to help support health and wealth. Rex, are you seeing more of that in the workplace?
Yeah. Wellness programs, it seems like, really started to take off in the early 2000s. A lot of times it's been fostered through the retirement plan of the company, more times than not. And so when it started, it really centered around financial wellness. When it started back in the early 2000s, and I shouldn't say started, but that's when it became more popular. And then as it's grown over the last decade, it started to morph significantly more into the health and financial wellness platforms, to where now the retirement plan and the health insurance companies are kind of partnering on adding all these extra things, to where it's, prescription drug programs to where you can buy it at a cheaper rate, to where you get programs to where you get discounts for healthy living, and they'll even run competitions. I know our firm, for instance, runs healthy lifestyle competitions to where you can put a team together, and if you average over so many steps, then your team qualifies for a pizza party. No, I'm kidding. Not a pizza party.
It seems like that.
for something, right? They qualify for something.
It does always crack me up when like health company A does a challenge and then they bring like ice cream for the, I'm like, you guys, like, what are we doing? Like,
come on, bring some broccoli. Come on, some asparagus.
Like,
bring something else.
Yeah.
The dentist hands out cookies. Like,
yeah. I'm like, wait, is this self-interest here? I'm like, I'm not sure what's going on.
Yeah. Well, I think it definitely has picked up, and I think that you see a lot more companies doing that. A lot of smaller companies can't afford to add that to their website, things like that. You have 10 employees and you just don't have a lot of extra bandwidth to put those programs in place. And so, again, a lot of times you can leverage your other professionals if you run a small business and a small company, and we can talk to you about that. But we can leverage the retirement plan. We can leverage some of the group health policies and programs to put these things in place. And some of these will reduce the employer or the employee insurance costs as well. And so I think it's definitely worth looking into if you're an employer.
Okay, Brandon?
Yeah. And I think it's so hard for me though. Like I look at them like, because we have fairly decent benefits, and I look at the whole list of things. I'm like, how much am I paying for all of this and never use, there's some things that I use. And so I don't know. But it's hard, right? Because from an employer's perspective, I know there's a lot of my peers that are like, what does the benefits package look like? I'm like, you can go buy your benefits package if they just pay you more, it's that way, it's that trade-off. And so we'll help clients sometimes decipher benefits packages and stuff. But I think ultimately it comes down to employers just trying to figure out how to retain good talent. And that's,
yeah, I do like the one, the jobs or the bennies where they're like, if you work here, you get a free gym membership or something. And you're like, okay, well, that saves me 50, 60 to sometimes $100 a month, like that. All right.
Holy cow! What kind of gym are you going to, Brandon?
Yeah, if you go to the rock climbing gyms, they charge some dough. But yeah, you can go.
There's some bougie gyms in Ogden.
Well, there's some bougie. You can do that. Mine's like $10 a month, but also
right. That's
like base level. But if I want to tan and do some other things, then it like jumps pretty quick, So
the family plan certainly adds up.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And so a lot of times it's not just you, but it's for the entire family.
Right.
Because, again, they're all on the same health insurance plan.
Right. And you got 7 kids.
Yeah, you have 7 kids,
like
6
how many
dogs.
Gym memberships?
Yeah. Rex, you could benefit from 7 kids on one plan. That's a lot.
That is a lot. New profit center.
Yeah. Okay. Well, anything else, Rex, on how health can impact your wealth? I think the bottom line is over time, the healthier you are, the more wealth you can acquire potentially.
I don't know. Let's just help you stay healthy and get wealthy.
Yeah. 100%. Very good. Well, thanks for listening to this episode of Through the Pines, being recorded here at the Brandyn Collective. A camp trailer, like we talked about, located inside the Monarch Building, inside the Nine Rails Arts District on historic 25th Street. If you found value, which I know you did, in this podcast, you could consider supporting us. Go to buymeacoffee.com/Banyan Media. Banyan's Banyan, 2 A's in Banyan Media. You can kick us like $5, $10 a month, or your life savings, whatever you want to do. Watch and subscribe to us on YouTube at Through the Pines. You can like our Facebook page at Pines Podcast and our Instagram at Pines_podcast. This has been Through the Pines, reminding you to use yesterday's dollars to finance tomorrow's dreams.